What's up, Eric? You can see me?
Yep.
All right. How you doing? My name's Evan. This is ESA. Thank you, first off, for joining us on this broadcast. If you want to start off by just telling us a little bit about your undergraduate and how that course was in the process, and then you transition to your master's.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Does my sound okay? Can you understand me?
Yeah. Just I guess you gotta try to be as loud as clear as you can. Work with it.
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, what's ESA?
Exercise Science Association at Temple University.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So my name's Eric.
I don't know. You have the power up?
Okay. So my name's Eric Trexler. I'll tell you what, I'll put these in. That way you guys can at least hear me. And then when you have questions, I can take them out or something.
That's cool. I'll just give you like a gesture when I got a question.
Okay.
We could text questions too.
Oh, yeah?
Okay, sorry about that, everybody. So, as I'm saying, my name's Eric Trexler. Right now, I'm a PhD student at UNC Chapel Hill. So talking about my background a little bit, I got into exercise science probably like many of you guys did as an athlete growing up. So growing up, my main sports were baseball, football, and wrestling. But everybody is eventually going to see the end of their career. I realized going into college that academics was going to get me farther than athletics was. But I didn't want to get too far from athletics. So at that point, I decided I wanted to go to Ohio State. Growing up in Ohio, it was always one of my top schools. So I went to Ohio State to study exercise science as an undergrad degree. And going into it, I was 100% sure that I was going to go straight into physical therapy. But when I was at Ohio State, a few things happened that I didn't really plan on. I really enjoyed my ex-phys coursework, which I expected, but I enjoyed it even more than I thought I would. And while I was there, I got involved with some things I didn't expect to. So I started competing in bodybuilding. I started competing in powerlifting. I started volunteering as a strength coach. And I also got involved with research. The researching was funny because it was a requirement for me to graduate with honors. And as part of the honors program, I really didn't have a choice. But in the process, I actually found out that I really had a lot of passion for research. So combined with all the other things going on, I realized throughout the program that even though physical therapy felt close to ex-phys, it wasn't exactly ex-phys. So at that point, I pretty much changed up my goal and decided physical therapy, it's a fantastic field to get into, excellent career. But I decided that I wanted to spend all of my day as a professional working specifically in exercise physiology and related nutrition concepts. So I basically abandoned the original goal and decided to go for a PhD that would allow me to study exercise and nutrition. By show of hands, how many people are thinking physical therapy is probably their route?
Physical therapy people?
Nope.
No?
Okay.
Nada.
That's really surprising. When I was at Ohio State, everybody treated exercise science as if it was kind of a pre-physical therapy degree. So if I did that, my class had about 55 students. I think at least 51 would have raised their hands. So that's really interesting. So what are you guys interested in doing?
I'm gonna go through a round.
Me? You? Me? All right. I'm interested in strength and conditioning on the collegiate level, and also, maybe opening my own facility as time goes on. So I'm kind of like, that's my main aspiring goal for right now.
Okay.
How's it going? Well, I want to do either pharmaceutical sales or medical device sales, but I also on the side want to prep out like bodybuilders and physique athletes.
Hi, I'm not really sure what I want to do yet. I just made the switch from athletic training to exercise and sports science, so I'm still trying to figure that out yet in terms of what route I want to go with it.
And I just want to do something like in the research field, probably like exercise physiology research.
I'm not exercise science, I'm OT, but yeah.
She's here.
So you're the physical therapy person?
Closest.
Closest, I guess.
I want to do like boutique fitness and work with like soccer moms and like personal train them.
Never gets old.
Can you see me? All right. So I want to do strength and conditioning with women's ice hockey. The collegiate level would be the best choice for me because the professional women's ice hockey is in Canada, and I don't think I'm going to Canada.
Yeah, that's not.
I want to do preventative care, help people so that they don't injure themselves in the first place.
Cool. Awesome.
Can you tell us your I know you talked about your bodybuilding competition and powerlifting, but how can you go further in depth with the things you did in strength and conditioning and what kind of like experiences you had with that?
Absolutely. Do you want me to put my headphones back on, or are we okay?
It's whatever way works better for you.
Okay. So with strength and conditioning, I basically worked every summer of undergrad. I'm just going to put the headphones in because I can hear the feedback. All right, sorry guys, I know it's a little annoying, but so during undergrad, every summer I would go back and volunteer as a strength and conditioning coach. So I think for 3 years I worked exclusively with wrestlers, and then there was the year where I did wrestling and football at high school. And strength and conditioning is a lot of fun. It really is. So I know some of you are interested in that. It's a really great career to go into. The one thing that is a drawback to that, I mean, it's day to day, it's so much fun. It's a really great work atmosphere. But unfortunately, one of the realities of it, just like any coach, especially when you're in some of the bigger sports like basketball and football, if you're on a football team and you get a bad quarterback for 3 years, you might be moving. You know, it's kind of an unfortunate part of that field. Now, if you're in the Olympic sports and you're working with volleyball, softball, if you're in Olympic sports, you'll probably have quite a few teams that you work with. That's a little bit more stable, so those jobs are out there. But if you're thinking, you know, Division I football, where the head coach is going to make $4 million a year, you know, if you're Urban Meyer strength coach, well, whenever that coach ends their position at that school, you're probably on the road. So it's something to keep in mind. Same thing at the professional level. When there's a coaching change, a lot of times they clean house and everybody's moving. So it's something to keep in mind when you plan, especially if you have a family or something like that. But it's a very fun profession, and the summers I spent doing that were extremely enjoyable, very rewarding. When it comes to bodybuilding, I actually, for the last 2 years, I was a consultant for a company called Innovate Elite Performance, and they're a company that has a bunch of coaches who independently coach bodybuilders in an online format. And so you talked a little bit about prepping some bodybuilders. That's exactly what they do. So I think they had maybe 6 coaches, give or take, that worked with all different kinds of bodybuilders and physique athletes. Bikini, figure, bodybuilding, everything in between. So I actually did not personally coach athletes for that. North Carolina's dietetics laws are so restrictive that I really couldn't work within the scope of the law and do that. Looks like you have a question? No?
No, you're good.
Okay. But yeah, so North Carolina's dietetics laws are so restrictive, I didn't feel like I could effectively do that. So my role with that company was to be a resource for the coaches. So for the people doing what you were interested in coaching bodybuilders. So that was really fun, very interesting, and that's a really great line of work to get into as well. Speaking with those coaches and consulting with them, they love what they do. I mean, they have a lot of fun and a lot of flexibility. It's the type of thing, if you wanted to pick up and take a random trip to the mountains, as long as you have Wi-Fi around, you really don't even need time off work. So you can make a very comfortable living doing that as long as you're pretty good at it. Now, when it comes to my own personal experiences with bodybuilding and powerlifting, were you asking about like the methods I used in terms of preparing? Is that the question?
Yeah, you could talk about that. It was just more like how your experience was, and what you gained from it going in transition to research, like what you took from it, how it implied.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, that was a really formative experience for me during undergrad because I'd always thought I was just going straight into physical therapy, and it kind of is its own little scientific case study when you do a bodybuilding prep like that. Every variable you try to document and control as best you can. So when it comes to carb, fat, and protein intake, hydration, supplementation, resistance training, cardio, everything is measured and very deliberately changed. So that was one of those times where I realized when you really hone in on those variables, you can do just about whatever you're trying to do to change your physique or your performance. I mean, obviously everyone's going to have genetic limits and maybe a different starting point, but I think that was the first time that I kind of was face to face with a lot of the variables that I still measure in my research, and it really made me appreciate how much controlling those factors can make a difference. So it was almost like running your own case study without knowing it. Once you get to the end of it, you realize that every variable is documented, and you can really see what mattered and what didn't. And it's actually cool if you guys get into this field and enjoy research. I know somebody mentioned that. If you find yourself in the right program, you can study what you want to study. I came here with the idea that I wanted to study things that relate to bodybuilding and powerlifting. The first few studies were about body composition and nutritional supplements, how they affect performance. Right now, I'm working on a study specifically in bodybuilders. I'm trying to build off of a review paper I wrote where we talked a little bit about body composition and metabolic rate. And so we're doing it. I mean, we're going and finding competitors around the time of a show, and we're measuring those outcomes and trying to make some sense of, in addition to a little hormone profile, what exactly happens at the time of the show and in the time following the show. So without dragging on about that study, I guess the main thing is if you find something that you're passionate about studying and you want to go do research on it, you can definitely do that. You just have to make sure that you find yourself in the right program and surrounded by the right people.
Nice. Talking about your research a little bit more, you think you can tell us how you decided? Well, you talked about your powerlifting and bodybuilding interests. How is the research you're in now going to translate to any future plans you have, and where are you trying to go to build up on when you are you get your PhD and move out away from the university right now, or if you will?
Yeah, so one of the cool things about our field is getting a PhD is there's a lot of avenues, right? So there's certain social sciences that if you get a PhD in it, you pretty much better hope you get a faculty job, or else you're probably not going to be able to apply that PhD very well, at least not in a direct sense. But for me, the bodybuilding and powerlifting stuff is kind of what got me into the research itself. So certainly I'd like to stay at least somewhat close to those topics because they're what really get me out of bed in the morning. And I feel really fortunate that I've been able to do that to this point, and I think I can continue throughout the PhD. Now, ultimately in our field, there's always a balance for people getting a PhD of how much do you want to do research, how much do you want to teach, and how much do you want to get out in the field and apply it. And luckily, they're not mutually exclusive, and careers never turn out exactly how you planned anyway. So for right now, my plan is to stay in the research and get a faculty position. But ultimately, I really hope that some of the things we do in the lab can make a difference for those types of athletes in terms of how to really hone in on the correct way to train and prepare. And hopefully we can do a good job of not just finding that information, but also getting that information out to athletes and to the practitioners who train athletes.
Okay. You have any questions, Jeff?
Yeah, I have a question. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
What was one of the factors that made you decide where to go to graduate school? Did you already know you were wanting to do research, and was that one of the things you considered? There are research labs available, or did you know you just wanted to do graduate school and just pick the school that was close to you? Like, why did you end up where you are now?
So that is a really great question. So for me, it was all about the research, and I wanted to find me a program that emphasized research and a place where I could do the type of research I want to do. So, to me, I went to UNC Chapel Hill when I was 22. When I was 21, UNC Chapel Hill was not on my radar. I didn't care about it. Didn't root for their sports teams. I was all the way over in Ohio, 9 hours away. The only thing that brought me there was that I knew that they emphasized research, and I knew that Abby Smith-Ryan was there, and she was doing what I wanted to do. Her topics were very, very close to them. So for those who are considering grad school, that's really find a program that emphasizes what you want to do. Okay, so our program is very clear that it's all about, not all about research, but there's a huge emphasis. So if you came in and had no interest in research and only wanted practical experience, as in a fitness setting or a strength coach setting, I think even they would tell you, we can get that for you, but there might be other programs that are more suited to that, because we do expect you to do a master's thesis. So if you absolutely hate research, you're going to have to do some of it. So for me, that was a huge selling point. UNC Chapel Hill emphasizes research, and they do a really great job with it. Now, once you have that figured out, if you are looking at a research position, finding a match with your advisor is the most important factor of any graduate program, whether it's master's or PhD. If research is important to you, that's the most important thing. So the reason I looked at UNC Chapel Hill mainly was because there was a faculty member there doing what I was interested in. So that really guided my whole search for schools. I found the advisor first, and then wherever they happened to be, I applied. So I applied to some beautiful places like Chapel Hill. I applied to some places that, in terms of climate and surroundings, were a little bit less ideal. And luckily, it kind of worked out that UNC was the best fit, and it's also a really nice area to live in. But ultimately, the guiding force is, if you're interested in research, you have to find somebody whose goals are similar to yours, whose interests are similar to yours, and who you're really going to work well with. So that's really the main topic. On the flip side, if you want to be a high-level strength coach, you might look for a place that has built-in opportunities to pursue those positions, or even a place like, I think it's maybe Middle Tennessee State, where their entire research program seems to be built around strength and conditioning. So they've produced, there is a research component to it, but man, they've produced some really great strength coaches. So I would encourage people when looking at grad schools to not think short term and say, oh man, that's not the climate I like or not the best area, but really look at, a program might be 2 to 4 years, but it's going to set you up for the next 40 or 50, right? So obviously some places you're like, I just can't live there, and that's totally fine, because you have to be a happy person to be successful in grad school. You can't be miserable. But definitely keep some of those bigger picture things in mind. And if research is the goal, the advisor has to be basically your first, second, and third criteria for picking a grad school.
You guys have any questions? No.
And he answered all of them.
You said you did some work with some supplementation. You want to talk a little bit more about that and, you know, how that influenced your work and what your results were?
Yes. So I think pre-workout supplements are pretty big. They seem to be very highly marketed in the supplement industry and very widely used. So coming into grad school, I wanted to dive into some of the ingredients that are used there, because that's one of the frustrating things with pre-workout supplement studies is I understand why they do it, but sometimes it gets frustrating when you say, well, we gave the subjects this pre-workout that has, you know, 25 ingredients that are supposed to work, and then they collectively worked. And that's fine, but we don't know what actually made the supplement work for that outcome, right? So what I was interested in doing some studies where we try to isolate some of the ingredients to look at them on their own. So in my time here, we've looked at pomegranate extract, which is a little bit, it's not widely used and it's a little bit newer, but if you guys have heard about studies on beetroot juice or beetroot extract, which is becoming more widely known, it's a very similar thing. It's a source of dietary nitrate. It's got some polyphenols in there. So in my time here, we've actually done a couple studies with pomegranate extract. It improved something called a critical velocity test. It improved performance on that test. And that's a scary test to run. That's one of the funnest things about doing supplement research is that the test outcomes will usually change based on what the supplement is supposed to improve. So a critical velocity test, you have 3 different speeds that are measured based on a previous VO2 max test. But you basically put the subject on the treadmill at a given speed and you say, run until you can't run anymore. And so a lot of our subjects were very highly motivated, and you would be really sweating because it looked like they're about to fly off the back of the treadmill. So you had to really be on your toes, kind of telling them like, all right, you're really done here. And they're like, no, I got a little more. So it was crazy. But so it improved performance on that test at the lower intensity runs, but not at the one highest intensity. We followed up with some sprint and strength work with pomegranate extracts. The performance results for that were a little bit more modest. It looked like it had a little effect on the sprint work, but not a ton on the strength work. But I think they're still kind of finalizing some of the analysis there, so that one wasn't actually my study, so I'd have to take a closer look at the strength numbers. My thesis research, we looked at caffeine and creatine supplementation with strength and sprint performance. So again, like I said, if you're looking at doing some research, those are all things that I came into grad school wanting to do, to look at nitric oxide boosters like pomegranate extract, really wanted to do a creatine study, really wanted to look at caffeine. So, you know, people are out there studying the things you want to study, but it's really on you to make sure that you're looking around and finding who's doing what I like and how do I contact them. And sometimes as an undergrad student, you think people don't really want to hear from you, but I'm telling you, if you email a professor or someone who's doing that research, tell them you're interested and say, hey, I'd really like to talk about your program, the overwhelming majority are going to be very receptive to that and very interested in talking to you. So that's how it works with me and my advisor, Abby. Working with her has been absolutely tremendous. It's opened up incredible opportunities for me, but the way that whole thing started was I reached out to people and said, I like these things, who does that? A few people brought up Abby. I emailed her and we went from there. So yeah, that's some of the ingredients I've researched. We've also done some stuff with protein. We've got a carbohydrate supplement study coming up soon. So always a lot to do there because the supplement industry, there's just so much to be studied and so many new products that are continuously coming out. But, you know, personally, I think that supplement studies make for it's a really excellent model for grad students because the studies you can just do so many different tests and design a study so many different ways depending on what it's supposed to do. But ultimately, my hope is that we can help inform people which supplements are beneficial, which ones aren't, and then ideally that can carry over to athletes, bodybuilders, powerlifters, so that they can basically get the things that are going to help them and have realistic expectations about how much it will help, but also to kind of save them from going down that road where, and I've gone down that road myself, where in my younger years you buy a supplement, expect it to totally change your world, and it turns out that there was just no evidence behind the ingredients. So hopefully we can help kind of get some of that information to consumers about, hey, some of this stuff can be really helpful, some of it probably isn't going to do much for you.
Cool. So nobody else has any questions? No more?
I got one.
You got one?
Yeah.
Hit 'em.
So as somebody who's familiar with research, and as someone who actually walks the walk and works out and competes in bodybuilding, powerlifting, all that, how do you balance the research world and the practical anecdotal world? From what you see in the gym that you know you've done yourself and works, but research really doesn't support, or research might even conflict. How do you marry those two worlds to find like a really good evidence-based practice?
Again, that's a really good question. It's really hard. Balancing the roles is first of all hard because they all take a lot of time and effort. So even just that is hard. But to answer your question, as someone who has been a practitioner and a competitor, I'm always making observations about things that seem to work for me, things that seem to work for me. And ultimately, you have to refer to, I guess you'd call it, the hierarchy of evidence. So lately I just wrote an article about this, so I really don't want to drag on forever about it. But lately there's a trend in the fitness industry to be very research heavy. And I love research. I do it all day. I review for a couple journals. I mean, I value research as much as anybody. But I also, as a competitor and a practitioner, I have to acknowledge that research, we haven't done it all yet. We don't know everything from research. So when you're making those observations, yeah, you note them. You try to explain them based on what we do know from research. But ultimately, the book of research is an incomplete book. So I guess the short way to answer that is when you make observations as an athlete, as a practitioner, you'll note them and you try to explain or describe why that might be the case based on what we do know. And every now and then you'll run into something that we just don't have a ton of evidence on. And you kind of put those in your back pocket. If it really seems to be working for you, just because I can't prove it with a PubMed link doesn't mean that I'm going to wait until I can. If it's really working for me, I'll go with it. Now, when it comes to things that directly contradict research, that's a more interesting question because there's kind of this dissonance where you know what should be expected and you know what you're observing. So you always have to consider both sides. You have to consider, what if I'm observing this incorrectly? Like, what if I'm not really getting the whole picture of what seems to be the case? And that's really hard to do because a lot of people, whatever they see with their own eyes is fact 100% of the time. So that's hard to do, but it's important. The other side of the coin is, again, if instead of just writing it off and saying, hey man, research is a crazy thing, try to understand why that might be the case. So, for instance, the other day I saw people talking about a study that showed elevation masks to have some kind of beneficial effects in a training program. Now, I've always told people that I see no reason why an elevation mask would be an effective tool to use during training. But then I was looking at data that seemed to say the opposite. So basically, I had to look at the study design, not tear the author apart, not claim that there was some kind of financial bias involved, to say, why might they observe this when I didn't expect them to? And so you talk about how the protocol was done, how that might have affected the outcomes. But again, it's tough. You have to kind of acknowledge those things, put what you do know out on the table, and every now and then there's going to be things that you just can't. You can't always use research to get to the end of it because we still have research. My point is, I value research as a more objective tool than personal observation, but they're not mutually exclusive. Especially as a practitioner or a competitor, if I can use both, I definitely will, especially if they don't conflict.
All right, thank you for your time, Eric. Do you have any closing remarks you want to leave us with?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. I'll make sure you guys get my contact information so that if you have any questions or anything, you're more than welcome to shoot me an email anytime. In terms of, I'm trying to give you something valuable to leave on a Monday evening here, something good. When it comes to your career plans, keep your options open. And make sure you're doing something that really gets you excited. I'm not a success story because I haven't really achieved anything yet, so I'm still a student just like you guys. But I do believe deep down that I'm on a good path because when I wake up to come in and do work, it gets me excited. And I think that if I were doing something that didn't get me excited, I think my work quality would be really just not as good, and the process wouldn't be as enjoyable. So it sounds like you guys all are following things that really interest you, and I certainly hope that is the case because I think that's valuable. But like I said, I'm gonna make sure you guys at least have access to my information. That way, if you have any questions that come up about bodybuilding, strength coaching, grad school, whatever, you guys can reach out anytime.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.